Michael, I'm wondering, as you put together this cover with the picture of General Kelly and the caption that you had on the cover, did you recognize at all that you very likely doomed him in the eyes of the president he serves?
Now, Deputy Managing Editor of Time magazine, Michael Duffy. He wrote this week's cover story on President Trump's new Chief of Staff, retired four-star Marine General John Kelly, and in part about how other generals in the Trump administration convinced Kelly to take the job. The piece writes, quote, "This summer, as the threats from North Korea increased while confusion dominated in the White House, the generals quietly launched a mission of their own. Mattis, McMaster, and Dunford, as well as Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, were concerned enough about the conduct of foreign policy to work together to convince a skeptical Kelly to become Chief of Staff. Their argument, unless someone else takes over, this White House cannot handle a real crisis." Which means that when Trump asked Kelly for the third time to be his Chief of Staff, it wasn't just a job offer, it was a call of duty. Michael, good morning and welcome. First question, I guess, is why did General Kelly say no twice before? What was holding him back from taking the job before he finally did?
I think he was skeptical about whether he could make a difference at the White House. He'd lived through the travel ban experience, which had caught him off guard in the first week, and seen the White House not really be prepared for that. And I think he felt he had his hands full, nor did he particularly, I think, have a clear role that he was ready to step into over there. But as the situation in July began to deteriorate, some of these other folks, other generals in the government, really began to nudge him. Trump was willing. Trump wanted Kelly to come over, but I think it took the pressure of some old colleagues who he'd served with, particularly his Marine colleagues, to say, you know, we really need you now. This isn't about what you want or what you prefer. This is something the country needs, and he responded to that just as he had throughout his career.
Yeah, Michael, with General Dunford specifically leaning on General Kelly to take the job, do you suppose the President of the United States knows the depth of the reason that General Kelly took the job, that it was for the country? Not just to serve the president, it was to serve primarily the country first?
When Kelly actually meets with the White House aides, the entire staff, Mike, about 48 hours after he gets there, he gathers them in the old EOB, staircase there as you walk in from West Executive, and he says, this is about country, president, self. We're putting the country first. That's a hierarchy that should come naturally, but it probably struck some in the White House as a change. So I don't know if he could have been any more transparent about it when he told 200 or 300 staffers in the White House that was his set of priorities.
Michael, how is General Kelly managing the relationships that already existed in the White House, especially this feud that Steve Bannon and Breitbart seem to have right now with H.R. McMaster?
Yeah, stay tuned, Casey. I mean, this is a really interesting space, right? Because the generals actually would like to put more troops into Afghanistan. I think one of the things that really provoked the generals into sort of nudging Kelly to take this job is that they were hearing things in the Situation Room in June and July about perhaps pulling all of our troops out of Afghanistan. And that really concerned them. And so they kind of gathered around and said, this isn't the way to run the railroad. But that skirmish, which isn't just about how to, surge up in Afghanistan, but also about McMaster's fate, whether he stays or goes there himself, is really playing out now, and we'll see who prevails. I think the thing to be, even though we're living in a very complicated situation right now about North Korea, and it's hard to see that there's a whole lot of new discipline yet in that space, we'll see here whether the people like Mattis and Tillerson and McMaster now enjoy more support because Kelly's in the Chief of Staff's office.
On that point,
I suspect that's really the question.
Yeah, on that point about General McMaster, the Wall Street Journal editorial board writes about McMaster and the commander, writing, quote, "Notice the alt-right brigades who seem to rise up as if on call to smite some White House policy opponent of aide Steve Bannon. The latest target has been H.R. McMaster. Lieutenant General McMaster has come in for abuse for favoring more troops and a new strategy in Afghanistan, for warning that Vladimir Putin is no friend of America, and for advising that Mr. Trump not precipitously withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. He also recently dismissed some NSC staff members who were brought on by General Michael Flynn and are said to be allies of Mr. Bannon." Mr. Trump may worry about the damage Mr. Bannon and his allies could do to his administration if he is no longer part of the White House team. But if his minions continue to vilify his colleagues inside the White House, how can anyone tell the difference? Sam?
Yeah, it's a lot of cast of characters inside the administration. Michael, I'm wondering, as you put together this cover with the picture of General Kelly and the caption that you had on the cover, did you recognize at all that you very likely doomed him in the eyes of the president he serves?
Well, I suspect that even President Trump knows that his own presidency probably, not to mention the fate of the nation, hangs in the balance here as to whether he gets this right and lets someone else help him. I think it's a good question, Sam. But I think Kelly knows that there's only so much anyone can do. And he went in clear-eyed about, whether you can really change or fix Donald Trump the way you fix a car, or you can create structures and procedures that actually make it possible for him to succeed. This week is one of those weeks that would give you pause about whether that's possible.
Here's that. I just want to show that new cover of Time magazine, Trump's last best hope. It is about Chief of Staff John Kelly. We'll see how the president reacts. Sam Stein, Michael Duffy, thank you very much. That does it for us this morning on Morning Joe.